There's no damn way this pipeline's going to get built. Let's discuss it now. Both sides of it for you. What an awesome panel I've got for you right now. Emily Lowan is here. Emily is the leader of the BC Green Party. Emily, thanks for coming on.
Hello, great to be here.
It's great to have you here. Also on the line is Margareta Dovgal. Margareta is managing director at the Resource Works Society, and she supports a pipeline. Margareta, thanks for coming on.
Hey, good morning, Mike.
Okay, thank you to both of you. Emily Lowan, you're the leader of the BC Green Party. How big of an issue is this for you? Your thoughts on this pipeline idea?
I mean, this project is a fantasy and it's a distraction from our affordability crisis. And when we look, at what Danielle Smith is doing in Alberta right now, she can't even decide if she wants to be part of the same country as us. And yet, as we discovered over the weekend, EB is ready to fold and spend billions of our taxpayer dollars on this pet project. I mean, just a few weekends ago, she was booed by her own AGM supporters for saying that she wants to work with Canada. So I think, this project is so hypothetical. Obviously, there's fierce opposition from coastal First Nations, EB and my party. And so, Danielle Smith needs to decide if she wants to be part of the same country, and then, then we can talk about an MOU.
Margareta, your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. No, I think Prime Minister Carney deserves some real kudos. He's reading the temperature in the room. He understands that we need egress for our most valuable export commodity. That's how we solve affordability issues, by growing our economy. And the path to success he's outlined is effective negotiation with BC and nations. They've set a really high bar. I think that's deliberate. Some may argue overly high, but it makes sense. And, just look at what Trans Mountain proved to us. We're now getting a better price for our product. The cost differential is narrowing. That's paying for the pipe. And I think that's just proof in the pudding that projects like this is how we pay the bills.
Emily, what do you say to that?
Yeah, look, let's talk about Trans Mountain. It took over 12 years to build. It took $50 billion in taxpayer pockets, and it can't even operate at full capacity. I think it's important to also look at global markets here. Even JP Morgan predicts that oil prices will fall by 50% in the next 2 years. So I think the only thing that this project would do is line the pockets of the oil lobbyists who run Danielle Smith's office. The majority of oil and gas projects are actually backed by American equity. So, this elbows up shtick really doesn't hold when you look at where the profits go and who actually owns this oil.
Okay. Margareta, what do you say to that?
Yeah, short-term commodity cycles don't and shouldn't distract from the fact that we're a civilization that runs on oil and gas. 80% of the world's energy needs today are met with oil and gas products, and that's just the reality of the world we live in. We have one of the world's most valuable products to sell. The world wants that. We need to diversify. The way we do that is by working with nations, working with communities to get to as much consensus as is possible. But sometimes you have to work in the national interest to get big projects built. And I think this is a brave move forward and exactly the kind of thing we need to grow the economy.
Speaking of consensus, Emily, I'm wondering, you called this a fantasy project here. I wonder if you think that we're talking about this a lot, this pipeline idea, but realistically on the ground, do you think it will ever get built? Like we just heard that clip from Elizabeth May, the federal Green Party leader, saying that there's no way in hell this thing is going to get built. There are not enough bulldozers to stop the people from rising up against this project. Like, do you think that there would be such fierce opposition from, let's say, First Nations on the north coast of BC that the project just won't happen?
Yeah. So coastal First Nations have been abundantly clear. Their position has not moved an inch. They will not see any change to the tanker ban on the coast. And there's fierce opposition to this oil pipeline. And this is actually what canceled the Northern Gateway pipeline in the 2010s. The coastal First Nations opposition caused Enbridge to scale back from the project. And so we've seen this play out before. How about let's save ourselves a decade and just focus on the real work of building a clean, renewable economy, funding good union jobs that will actually get us out of this cost of living crisis.
Okay, Margareta, quick comment from you, then we'll fit in a quick break here. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. We're in a confederation. And the whole point of being in a country like Canada, rather than a loose collection of autonomous sovereignties, is being able to advance shared objectives. And as it comes to the duty to consult, duty to accommodate, none of that is a veto for nations. That's what reasonable people interpret from the Constitution. I also wouldn't rule out Indigenous ownership. I think we're going to see strong indicators of that, and the MOU lays the groundwork there. So, yeah, lots to come. But I think we're in a good position, and we just have to work through it. And Carney and Smyth are clearly leading in this way.
Okay, guys, let me jump in there. We'll fit the break in right there. We'll come back with more on the other side. It's our pipeline debate here to kick off our show today on a super busy news day. My guests are Emily Lowan, leader of the BC Green Party, Margareta Dovgal from Resource Works, both sides of it for you. All right, phone me now with your thoughts, your questions, your comments on the pipeline fight. This one really blew up in Ottawa the last couple of days. Are you for or against another oil pipeline from Alberta to the north coast of BC? 604-280-9898 is the number to call. 604-280-9898, star 9898 on your cell. Emily Lowan, Margareta Dovgal are my guests. This is Mike Smyth, back with your calls. Right now, we're debating the pipeline. This one really blew up in Ottawa last couple of days. Emily Lowan is here from the leader of the BC Green Party, opposed to the pipeline. Of course, Margareta Dovgal, Resource Works, supports the pipeline. James in Kelowna. Hi, James. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd say build a pipeline. Let's get that stuff flowing. It's going to build the economy. It'll create jobs. And you know what, Mike, as far as protests go, and resistance to this whole thing, I think the federal government, since this is a federal project, the coastline does not belong to BC, it belongs to Canada. I think the federal government has shown very clearly how they deal with protests over the last few years. Call in the RCMP, call in the military. That's what they've shown they want to do. So let's get it done.
Thank you for that. Margareta, at the end of the day, when we talk about the jurisdiction on this, the federal government does hold the hammer here. This is federal jurisdiction, this project, right?
Bing, bing. Yep. It's not the premier's call. And the job of the prime minister is to create the conditions for important conversations to happen. He needs to hear everyone out. That's his job in a democracy. But at the end of the day, they do have the jurisdiction. And if they want to get this project built, if they satisfy requirements to accommodate and consult, then they can get the thing done.
Emily Lowan, what do you say to that?
Yeah, so let's talk about the history of this tanker ban. It actually had multi-party support in the 2010s because BC needs to protect its coastline for ecological reasons, but also with our own economy. We can't afford to have our economy crashed in BC because of a massive oil tanker spill, which feels like an inevitability when we look at the research and the probability of that. And I think it's fundamentally absurd that this project would ever be considered a nation building project. Of course, we want to move away from exporting to the US. That's great. I support that. But in the case of oil, the Asian markets we're looking for are quite literally evaporating. China's oil consumption peaked last year. They're electrifying quickly and are simply not going to be a part of the oil conversation by the time this pipeline would come online. I think it's a mirage.
Richard in Burnaby. Hi, Richard. Go ahead.
Yes, I think it's highly hypocritical of the Indigenous people and the environmentalists to try and stand in the way of economic progress. I would have more sympathy for them if they turned around and said, okay, no reconciliation payments during this time to help support Canada, as well as the environmental movement. And the facts and figures about the world is not turning away from oil consumption. That's a complete lie.
Okay. Let's see.
Into industrialization.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's give Emily a chance to defend herself there. Emily, go ahead. What do you say to him?
Yeah, well, I think we are seeing an accelerating global transition to electrifying economies. We're seeing this in China. We're seeing this in many countries in Europe. And it's important to look at where the forecast is headed. As I said, JP Morgan predicts that oil prices will fall by 50% in the next 2 years. And so I think we need to look very clearly about these bitumen markets. And maybe we're looking at different numbers, but I'm looking at these standard assumptions, and these markets are evaporating, and we're foreclosing opportunities here to move to renewables and alternative economies.
Margareta, what do you say to that?
Yeah, if proponents are willing to risk billions of private capital on those market conditions, I would put some real stock in that. And if we look at the regulatory legislative hurdles in the way of them being able to take that risk, then I think we can create the conditions for success. But to the last caller's point, Indigenous peoples aren't a monolith. And I think there is going to be a lot of Indigenous support for this project. And very likely that is how we're going to get another pipeline to the coast built.
Kevin in Burnaby. Hi, Kevin. Go ahead.
Hey, I just think that it's kind of funny how the Green Party, she just keeps kind of giving straw man arguments and distracting, bringing up the Alberta separation thing when focusing on some sort of hybridization program with oil and green energy efforts would be more effective than just fighting something with, I guess, more vitriol. Like she kind of seems like she's more divided against this country than most of Canada.
Okay, Emily, what do you say to him?
That couldn't be further from the case here. I think, what I want to see is not another pipeline fight that divides this country. I want provinces to be working on on projects like publicly owned renewables that will offer 3 times the number of union jobs, that will actually put money back into workers' pockets and lower our energy bills, not jack them up with the volatility of an oil pipeline. And we wouldn't have to deal with Alberta to do that. And there's work that we can do with Alberta on transmission lines. That's being cut out of the conversation right now.
Okay, Margareta, we just have 30 seconds left, sadly. Margareta, you get the last word here. Go ahead.
Yeah, this MOU, it's a national unity play. And, it is actually, electricity is in the MOU. The feds and Alberta are now talking about energy and climate files that they've not been discussing for a long time because they're willing now to have that conversation about getting a pipe to BC's coast. I think that's really important. It's in the interest of Canada as a whole to get this project built.
Okay, thank you to both of you for a really good discussion. I appreciate both of you here, and I would love to have you both back. Emily Lowan there was the leader of is the leader of the BC Green Party, of course, opposed to the pipeline. Margareta Dovgal, Resource Works. She supports the pipeline. Both sides of it for you. Thanks a lot for your calls. Keeping